This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground magazine, and this is another episode of WCM's Park Update, sponsored by Midwest Electric Products. And my esteemed colleague is here, Mike Gast, the president of the Emiola Group, which is a marketing firm, and he does a variety of different things from Nebraska. And our guest today is Joel Holland, CEO of Harvest Hosts. And I think the big news is you guys took over part of the Escapees RV Club too, as well. So does that make you CEO of Escapees, or is it just Harvest Host? How does that work?
Ooh, good question. Well, I've loved Escapees for a long time. So I've been a member of Escapees and attended events over the past few years as an RVer. Always loved the community aspect of the club, and got to know Travis and Mel. And when the timing, the timing basically became right, where they were ready to focus on mail servicing in the campgrounds. Mm-hmm. And for me, the memberships part of Escapees, the actual community aspect, the events were really exciting, because I think with Harvest Hosts, we've got camping nailed, right? Like unique camping at wineries, breweries, etc. Community is a pillar that I feel like we've never done a great job fostering. Even though our members constantly tell us they think Harvest Hosts is a community, I always find that really interesting, because I think there's this community aspect between our members and the hosts that they visit. And I think now with Escapees, we can get community between the RVers. And I feel like community is just super, super important to RVers. So that's why we were excited about it. And, this is the sixth company that I've purchased now in the last 5 years. I have the same kind of the same game plan every time. And the first rule is the Hippocratic Oath: do no harm. And so Escapees is a great company. It's a great brand. It's been around longer than I've been alive. And I have no plans to come in and mess with it. So I think that's the first thing I'm trying to tell people. This is a good thing. We're not going to break it. And over time, I want to get to know the members better and ask them, how can we make the club even better, right? Like, what else can we do to improve it?
Yeah. So I guess,
Joel, let's take a look at it from the Harvest Host side. What are those members going to see different, or for added benefits?
Yeah. So in the short run, the answer is everything stays the same, and that's very intentional. Like, we don't want to come in and start messing with things until we get a full lay of the land, fully understand the business, and how we can make more of the Escapees events and community available to Harvest Host members, and vice versa. How can we make Harvest Host available to Escapees members? And there is, no surprise, a pretty good overlap, right? There's a double-digit overlap of members that are already members of both, because there was that nice slice of community. But my goal over time is to basically make both sides memberships happier. And I think, in a year from now, we do this interview and the Escapees members are like, yes, this is a great acquisition, because we love the benefits that we now get as being in the Harvest Host network. And same thing, I think the Harvest Host members are going to be really excited about having access to more of the Escapees events like Escapade. But in the short run,
those folks that have overlap in membership, are they going to save money now?
The answer in the long run is yes. So that this is my goal in the long run, is to find a way to let both sides experience both sides. And yes, we will have some overlap where we essentially will give refunds or credits. That is most likely going to happen, and that's fine. And the other thing I want to address is we don't have any plans to raise prices. We haven't raised prices on Harvest Hosts in 3 years, and that's been intentional, because everyone's raising prices, and I think people are getting squeezed. And so this is not a cash grab where we're buying Escapees and raising membership. We're not touching it. So we're not touching pricing. We're not touching anything on the product at all at first, so that we can take our time to learn it. And one of the benefits, we just officially hired and onboarded 15 escapees employees into Harvest Host. So they're now Harvest Host employees, and they're going to keep running things just like they always have.
How does the mail service and the parks obviously didn't come over with the purchase. So how does that work for escapees members now? I imagine escapees still will have access to the parks, correct?
Yes, the parks and mail. And so
Okay.
Travis and Mel will continue running parks and mail service. And we have basically a contract with them where
Okay.
nothing changes. So you still have to be an escapees member in order to use the mail service. And you still get the preferred rate. And same for campgrounds. You can still go to the campgrounds and you get your discount and your preferred rate as an escapees member.
Any concern that the influx of Harvest Host members will swamp the campgrounds?
No, I don't think so. I think campgrounds can probably use all the visitors they can get, right? I mean, I think we're kind of moving into that territory these days where more bookings is better. And interestingly, I think the campgrounds are great if you're around those campgrounds or you're going that direction. But what most escapees members are using are it's mail servicing and the events, right? Escapade, Escapers, the Bash, the Birds of a Flight interest groups, the hops that the head out programs. So those things I think will get more traffic, and I'm excited about that because to me, the one thing you can do to make events more vibrant is have more people, and a lot of these have a lot of extra capacity, right? Like Escapade, as an example, could have hundreds of additional RVers, and I think that's great. That means that the seminars have more people, the evening happy hours have more people, the parties are a little more fun. So I am really excited to get more Harvest Host members to these in-person events.
Yeah, definitely. Is this kind of entice Harvest Host or Escapees members to maybe check out more of the Harvest Host locations than maybe they've done in the past, I guess, if they have memberships of both?
I hope so, right? I mean, so our goal with Harvest Host members, so we now have about 260,000 Harvest Host members. Our goal is to get members to stay at more locations. So I like to say we're the opposite of a gym membership where they want you to join and never use the program. We want you to join and use it as much as you can. And, the more that we're like, it's the whole out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes people are booking trips and they're forgetting, hey, I've got a Harvest Host membership. I should be thinking about booking a winery or a farm on this trip. Now we're more prominent, I think, in that trip planning for these escapees members. So I hope so. I hope those who have overlaps find a way to go to more Harvest Host locations for sure.
So how did you roll this out with the Harvest host, and what has their reaction been?
Well, I mean, the nice thing, again, kind of we've told everybody is in the short run, nothing's changing. So there will be no changes for the hosts. There'll be no changes for members on either side. The programs remain independent. They're simply now operated by Harvest Hosts. However, they're just operated by the 15 full-time escapees employees who have always been operating them. So if anything, it's been a change in like corporate structure only. And that's the only thing that's going to change in the short run. In the long run, I'm excited, to do kind of the same thing I did with Harvest Hosts, which was grow the program. And so when I bought Harvest Hosts in 2018, we had 600 locations. Now we have 5,500. So we really focused on growing the network. And of course, we then grew membership. With escapees, I'm not making any assumptions up front. I'm excited to start talking to members and ask them, hey, I have this engineering team of 10 engineers. We have a product team. We have a customer service team. We have a host recruiting team. How can we put our team to work to make escapees membership better? And I'm guessing that some of the first things are going to be on the technology front. Like, let's improve the website. Let's improve booking events, right? Let's improve membership and community aspects, right? Like, escapees is a community, but there aren't a lot of tools to let members connect with each other. So I think there's some things that we can do on the technology side to help at first. But again, that's just me making assumptions. I want to just ask members, what should we do first?
What was, I guess, when I was reading the story, I guess, what was the process to get to this point where you were even purchasing escapees, I guess. What, was this something they approached you about, or did you approach them, or was it just kind of something they had been thinking about for a while? I guess, what was the process to even, Escapees has been, family owned for a long time. So
Yeah, 46 years. It's really awesome. No, I think this was like a good lesson in the power of building relationships and staying in touch with people. And that's one of the things I've done for the last, 10 years as an RVer. I love getting to know all the different companies and individuals that are making moves in the RV world. And I get to know them and we become friends. And that's what happened with Travis and Mel. I got to know them, attended their events and loved them. And we would just check in every once in a while. And this year, I had this idea and I basically told him, look, I think with Harvest Hosts, we've got camping and I'd love to have camping and community. I think those two pillars together are very, very powerful. And I love the idea of having state chapters. And I love the idea of having people be able to get together in person at big annual events. But I don't want to build any of that because I'm not an events person. And so Escapees has done this for decades, really well. And so that was the idea I floated to him. I was like, is there ever a possibility where we could kind of take over this in-person events concept and then add more members, add some more money and funding to build on it. And then I've got camping and community together. And so eventually they said, yeah, we like that. We like that. And we would be ready to pass the baton.
So you've had the ownership of Boondockers Welcome for a while now. What did you learn from that process that helped you with this transition?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, we've owned Boondockers for 3 years now. And, today it's a vibrant community about, I want to say 30% of our Harvest Host members are also using Boondockers Welcome. So we grew the Boondockers Welcome network. So there's more locations now by like 1,000 than there were when we bought it. And there's more people staying. So that's been good. I think the learning lesson on the negative was we purchased the program and started making changes that we thought were better, and mainly on the technology, right? On the booking side, using our app, our platform that we thought were better. And that was an assumption that was dangerous because some of the original Boondockers Welcome hosts were like, hey, we liked it the old way. And you've changed some features that we wish you hadn't changed. And that was a mistake, right? So that, to me, that was a good learning. The lesson there was at first, just pause, take a breath, and then ask the hosts or ask the members, what do you think we should change? We made assumptions there and we've since fixed them, right? Like we've since gone back, listened to the Boondockers Welcome hosts and then made updates so that they're happy. But at first that was actually a little messy, to be honest. And the mistake was we moved a little too quickly with what we thought were improvements and in the process messed up some things. So with that learning lesson in mind, that's why this time we're doing nothing at first. We're just going to take our time and learn. And the nice thing too, again, it's like this organization's been running well for 46 years. There's no rush. There's no rush to change anything.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, recognize our sponsor, Midwest Electric Products, and we will be back with Joel here in a few seconds. Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, and we are chatting with Joel Holland, the CEO of Harvest Hosts. And Joel, before the break, we were talking a little bit about your acquisition of the Escapees RV Club and how that process is going. I know you mentioned before the show that you and your family had traveled and visited some Harvest Host destinations this summer. I guess, what are you hearing from hosts as far as how the season is going, and are there any challenges they kind of face right now?
Yeah, so we did a 6-week trip from Colorado to Virginia and back. And, like most Harvest Host members, I stayed in some Harvest Hosts, like probably 4 Harvest Hosts, but all the other nights were in campgrounds. And that's pretty typical. And so kind of got the perspective on both the hosts and the campgrounds. And I'll say this. So we left here in April and we came back in June. On our way out, the weather was awesome, like cool. We were able to visit a bunch of hosts because we were boondocking, no problems. Went to a drive-in movie theater, winery, etc. On the way back, it was blazing hot, and we went to zero hosts because it was just too hot to boondock. And so I think that what we're seeing actually in our booking numbers at Harvest Hosts is that this heat this summer has actually had a meaningful impact. We're down year over year on bookings at hosts. It started really strong in April with the eclipse. It was like banana numbers, people going out to go to the eclipse. July has been so hot in most of this country that it's having an effect on people. And I've actually seen that in campgrounds and campground owners that I chat with. They're also seeing a little bit of softness this July.
Mm-hmm.
However, we all kind of have the same opinion and guess, which is travel season is going to extend this year into September, maybe even October. And anecdotally, that's what's happening for us. Like we postponed doing a big summer trip when it was hot. We're going later this fall when it's going to be cooler because it's just more pleasant. I can also tell you, when you look at we have this heat map of the United States of where people are booking, and earlier in the year, we had all these people down, like January through March down in Texas, like all the lower was all, the South is all booked. Now everybody's up north, like nobody's going to Texas. It's just too hot. So, I think we're all hearing this, that there's a little softness this summer, but I'm hoping it's weather related, and we'll see how that plays out. But I'm pretty optimistic that people are going to travel longer this season.
So, Joe, you mentioned that you've got recruiters out there looking for more hosts. How does that work, and what do those numbers look like? Are you growing substantially this summer?
Yeah, so we do. We have a great host recruiting team and a host success team, over 10 people that are trying to find new places. It usually starts with member suggestions. So members suggest a host, our team reaches out to the warm, suggestion. But we also go to a lot of industry events. So we're always attending winery events, state association events like a bison association or alpaca conventions. Like there are associations for everything. Drive-in movie theater conventions. Like we go to all these things, we get to know people, and we try to build relationships. So yeah, we add 100 to 200 new hosts every month. And so, the goal every year is to add over 1,000 new hosts. And we're on track with that this year. So that the host recruiting game hasn't changed too much. I will say I'm feeling this with the small businesses as well as the campgrounds we work with. People do seem like they're more interested in business now than before. Like they want more traffic. I think if we rewind 2 years, everybody was slammed. Like they're like, man, we have more people visiting than we can handle. It feels like these days there is more of a desire to have more traffic. And I think,
is it getting harder to have hosts play by the rules? I know you've got some very unique ways of doing business where you suggested purchase at the vendor, at the host. Is that hard to maintain when you get this big?
Man, I'd say yes and no. So I call it the rule of large numbers. So now that we have 260,000 members booking millions of nights at small businesses, for the most part, they're all great, right? Like almost all of our members are fantastic. But with that many members, you're going to have a couple bad apples. And maybe bad apples is the wrong term, but freeloaders might be a better term. People who are going to the hosts and purchase is never required, right? There's no transaction system where we charge you to stay. There's a code of conduct that says, support the host you visit, right? If you're going to stay at a winery, do a tasting, buy a bottle. If you're going to go to a farm, buy some eggs. It's not required, but we are hearing that some people aren't doing that, right? They're visiting, they're staying for free, and they're moving on. Now that happens. I mean, the nice thing about working with 5,500 businesses is that these businesses are used to customers, and customers come in all shapes and forms. Some are great, some are really annoying. I usually ask hosts, I say, are our members compared to your typical customers better or worse, right? That's my standard. And they they always say, I've never heard them say anything other than your members are better than the average customer. They're happy, they're travelers, they're generous. They want to get to know us. They want to support us. So yeah, the feedback is always universally positive, but there's always but we had this one guy, Joe, who came last week in the middle of the night, left in the morning, didn't even say hello. So that certainly happens. And with this many members, it happens, frequently.
I know on your website, so the mainly it's like one night. You do mention on your website there are locations that will allow you to stay multiple nights, but they may have a fee. I guess how does that one night stay impact the ability for somebody to like explore like a farm or a winery or a brewery? I mean, because I just imagine like people like pulling in after a long day of traveling, they're tired, and then the next day maybe they want to continue on with their trip. Is that impact the hosts at all? I guess that kind of.
Yeah, one of the biggest requests we've had from members and then recently from hosts was we'd like to stay more than one night. And our program has always been a 24-hour,
Yeah.
program. And so that's still the spirit of the program. We basically, we're guaranteeing you can stay one night for free, support the business and move on. But some hosts are willing to let people stay, an extra night. And so we now call that extra nights. And some hosts, and we ask them, are you willing to allow this from time to time? And some of them said yes. And so now when you go and search for hosts, some of them will say extra nights. It's still a request to stay program. So when you put in a request, you can say, I'd like to stay an extra night. The host has to decide and approve it. And then that's between you and the host. So we don't facilitate any of that. There's no payment or anything like that. But when you go to the host, they'll tell you what they expect.
So you
So it
mentioned.
seemed like it'd be a natural progression for some hosts to make their facilities a little bit nicer. If they've got a couple spots on their property that they're using for harvest hosts, and they would add water, electric, maybe even a sewer connection. At some point, does it become a campground to you?
Well, so it's interesting. So now I've been doing this 6 years now, and I have seen maybe 2 or 3 of our hosts do that. And then they actually became campgrounds, and then they kind of left our program because they became licensed campgrounds, and they're now making money selling spots, and that's fine, right? If they go through the licensing process and become a legitimate campground, that's great, and then they can join our campers card program, and we can still promote them a different way. But then it's no longer harvest hosts, right? So paying per night to stay somewhere is just not the program. Now the reality is, these businesses, they're all doing something, right? Like if you're a farm, you're a farmer. They don't want to be a campground. I mean, that's just not their business. And so that's why we've seen so few of them go the route of becoming campgrounds. Is that's just a very different business. It's not what they got into, and it's not what they're passionate about. It's the same thing for wineries and breweries. Like they're passionate about making wine and making beer. Running a campground's hard, as you guys know. It's hard work. So it's for a different type of person.
What's your, I guess, what's your thought on the recent Hip Camp news where they're, and obviously Hip Camp is a slightly different model. It's a different model than maybe Harvest Host, but I know they're really advocating for the low impact camping where maybe you can have private landowners that do build out like a couple campsites or glamping sites. How does that impact, like if that were to continue spreading, in California or into other states, how does that impact Harvest Host, I guess?
It's a very different program, right? So the people that use Hip Camp are just a very different type of customer. They tend to be, there's a different profile, right? If I was to generalize, these are people from cities who want to dip their toes in camping once or twice, and they don't really come back much. Like their repeat business is pretty low. Because if you're a camper, like you figure out how to camp, and if you're an RVer, you're a much more consistent user. And then a membership like Harvest Host makes sense. And you like real campgrounds, right? Like we're going in 2 weeks to do a trip to Wyoming, go to the Tetons, and we're going to use campgrounds because, again, it's too hot to go stay, in boondock in someone's driveway. And I have seen some of these little things that have like a connection, but you're not sure if it's legitimate. I'm taking my 2 kids. I want a real campground. So I think Hip Camp is I don't know where I fall. I think it's great they're letting private properties invite people to stay with them. I think that I do believe in property ownership rights, but you got to play by the rules and you got to play by your municipality's rules. And campgrounds work really hard to get licenses for a reason because they're safe. The electricity is not going to blow up and burn your rig down and kill you. There's just there are reasons, there are rules.
I guess, so like I know they have one county in California that approved this ordinance. Obviously, it's only one county, and nobody knows if it's going to spread or anything. But let's say, down the road, like 20, 30 years, let's say all of a sudden these low impact ordinances are all over. Is Harvest Host, can you guys pivot to like allowing, like, let's say a winery has like 3 or 4 sites with water and electricity and stuff? Is that something that theoretically Harvest Host would be okay with down the road, maybe, I guess?
It's tough to say because it's not really the spirit of our program,
Yeah.
right? Like, people know us for a membership where you pay about $100 a year, and then you can go stay at these hosts for free, and then you support the business, right? And that's the business, that's the model. When you start getting into pay for utilities and hookups, I mean, that to me is that's a campground, and that's just a very different concept, right? And again, that's why we have Campers Card. We have over 1,000 campgrounds in our Campers Card program, and our members go to campgrounds and they use their Campers Card discount and stay at really great places, but they're very different, and we're trying to keep them very separate.
How is I know we're running out of time here, but how is that millennial younger generation's desire for experiences? How is that kind of fed into Harvest Host? Because I know when I was looking at your map the other day, I mean, there is a ton of farms that are really jumping on this, and the agritourism has exploded. And I mean, it's kind of neat that people want to go stay at a farm and maybe even do some chores, I guess.
Yeah, and farms are our biggest category now, right? It's the largest category, and it's our largest number of bookings. And I think that's great too, because farms are struggling, right? They're always struggling. The farm life is tough, and so for them to now have a way for more customers to come in is awesome. And I think younger, Gen Z, even millennials, like everyone loves a good farm, and it's neat. Like, people are looking for experiences on the road, and I think that is what Harvest Host is. Like, we always say, like, look, you're taking a 30-day trip. 28 of those days you're going to be in campgrounds, hooked up, doing your thing. But 2 of those days, like, go visit a farm and try something different, right? Go taste some produce, see how your beef is made, right? And I think that experience concept is really catching on these days.
Yeah, my grandpa owned a dairy farm, and I would always help him like milk the cows. And at the time, I wasn't thinking, boy, this is an experience. I was thinking, why am I up at 5 a.m. in the morning milking a cow? But I guess maybe I had the wrong perspective. So
I was going to say, this is the Tom Sawyer story, right? Like, you charge the kid to paint the fence.
That's why the one night.
That's right. That's right. One night's great.
So, but Joel, it's always great catching up with you, and you guys at Harvest Host are always doing some amazing things. I guess, can you just tell people how to get connected with Harvest Host, whether they want to be a host or just join as a member?
Yeah, just go to harvesthost.com. If you're on Instagram, look up Harvest Hosts. We've got it's great content. We're always showcasing members' experiences and photos from the road. Boondockers Welcome is part of the Harvest Host umbrella. We tend to use Harvest Host as the signature name, but Boondockers Welcome connects you with over 3,000 private properties, much more community-based. Escapees now, of course, is a wonderful membership club where you can meet people in person. And then if you're over in the United Kingdom, we've got Brit Stops, same concept with over 1,000 pubs. So we'd love to connect.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And hopefully the Escapees thing goes well. It's you guys should have fun hosting all those events. I mean, they do 1 or 2 events at least a year, right?
Yeah. Well, it's actually closer to 50 because they do 50? The big ones.
Yep.
Yeah, they do the big ones.
They do the regional. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's all the smaller events. And so, yes, we're really excited for these like boots on the ground. It's going to be a fun learning experience.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Joel, for coming on. And Thanks everyone for watching, and we will be back again next week.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com.